Let's start with,
Okay.
I guess, Emma. How are you coping in the IT industry since you are a woman? Has that impacted anything? And I think that also goes for Connie as well.
It is a great question, and I can share some examples of my early career and my career now. Let me just start by saying that right now I am thriving as a woman in digital because I have a very amazing team who celebrate diversity and champion it. So it's not just the fact that I'm female, it's the fact that I live regionally. It is my background in music. It's all kinds of combinations of things that puts me in a really strong position. I will say though that when I was coding full time and I then became a parent, I found that I couldn't keep up with that intensity of being able to work on something for hours at a time. And so by choosing to have small children, and I didn't realize that this was going to be a consequence, I switched careers because I just felt I couldn't keep doing the thing I was doing because I was a mum of a baby. I had to keep feeding and all kinds of things. So you have to take those things into consideration. Early on in my career, though, I've never felt, although I've been been sexually harassed and things, actually not in the IT industries or the workplaces I've worked in. It was in hospitality and other places. So um, I've always found, the blokes I've worked with as a coder to be pretty good, and I've just had the fortune of working with great teams. So maybe Connie, you can add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this day and age, there has never been a better time to be a young woman joining the IT or cyber career, particularly because there's a push for more women to get them in. So there are new scholarships, you can get discounted training, you can really take advantage of those things that weren't around probably when Emma and I started. And I think it's so good to see. And even though I know they're hearing in the news and the media that we're in decline of women joining this field, it's nice to see some initiatives to have that happen. I have always felt like a peer amongst those I worked with. I've never felt any different because I was a woman, but that could also be inherently because I grew up with just all brothers. So I've always been one of the boys. I've never probably seen myself as anything other. And that's, I think, also probably why I went into IT and that as a career, because, that was just something you do. So yeah, I think it's those olden days where women used to get, strange comments or, put down. I think that's all gone. And I don't think there's a workforce in operation that would stand for that these days. So I don't think it's something anyone in this new generation is going to face, luckily.
It does remind us, though, that we have to be always challenging our own unconscious bias about all kinds of things related to, especially when we are coding and creating things. Are we putting unconscious bias into the solutions and the things that we're creating? Be really interested to know too what Brennan and Jasminda think about this topic.
Look, I'll dive in. I think, yeah, look, diversity is a very important thing, and it's something that's taken very seriously here at the Australian Space Agency. And very happy to say we do have a diverse team here in our office and throughout, actually a very regionally spread out team as well, working throughout Australia, which is one reasonably good thing to come out of COVID, that things like this can happen digitally.
I will probably want to say that I've been very lucky ever since I started my Amazon journey, that I've actually worked with women very closely, both in leadership positions as well as every day. So my immediate counterparty, she's who does a BD role. She's been amazing. I do know her outside of work as well. So I'm been really fortunate. I guess I've been lucky. I've been really lucky to work with really good female leaders, and I appreciate that all the more because maybe it's just the leaders themselves have been really good as well, but they have been very inclusive, very open, make for very empathetic leaders. And I look forward to, and I know AWS as an organization has inclusion diversity targets itself in terms of hiring, and it's aggressively pursuing those every day in our hiring. But I look forward to more and more diverse leaders in the organization across the board.
You said BD role. What is BD role?
Business development.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks. That's my question.
I think we have another question for Emma. How did you bring music into the IT industry, and is there a way to bring music into the IT industry if it hasn't been brought into the IT industry?
Look, even when I was doing my jazz degree, I think back and there was quite a few that were great musicians, but they ended up doing these extraordinary things in IT. So I think it really complements. I'm wondering if it's a language thing, that music is a fairly abstract language and coding is quite similar. So I bring it in, and I've got, all these other ideas of things I'd love to do. So I think the answer to that is there's more than one way. There's thousands of ways to do it, and please just go and do it, because I want to see what you make, and I want to know if I can be part of it or consume it in some way. That would be fantastic. So yes, absolutely, go for it.
And I'm just curious for the other three. Have you guys played an instrument, or have you guys been interested in music?
I'll break the ice because I don't have a musical bone in my body. Other than singing and dancing, that's it. Can't play an instrument to save myself. I wish I could. I'm always envious.
I'll say I've tried to learn the guitar. I'm still learning. It's going to be a lifelong journey. And I have also learned the keyboard. Again, I think it's going to be a lifelong journey. And from a technology perspective, I do feel that the music industry in its general sense is supported by technology in terms of streaming, being able to upload music really well. We find technologies like TikTok or YouTube allows musicians to upload and share their content really, really easily online with a lot of people. But machine learning is definitely also a technology which is helping musicians create music more easily. So there are absolutely music is coming together or coming to the fold of leveraging technology to expand and touch a much larger audience, and make it easier for budding musicians to get into sharing, creating, being builders, which is what it's about.
I played guitar for a while, but find it hard for my hands to do things independently. My sister used to teach piano lessons, and I just could never get the hands to work. My brain and hands just don't talk to each other in that aspect. But I just wanted to point out as well, this music is another sort of pathway into space. And if you haven't seen it, there's a wonderful video from Commander Hatfield on the International Space Station, singing a David Bowie song, which got millions of hits on YouTube. And there are people in the world who are working tangentially to the space industry, who are creating scores for the latest Netflix shows that venture into outer space, or people who create space music, which I love to study too, just having that sort of ambient sound in the background. So there's the tangential aspect as well.
So we have a question for Brennan now. Do you collaborate with any other companies like NASA?
NASA is by far the best known space agency, and we're doing our best to catch up to them. But yes, we do work with them. So here at the Space Agency, we have a wonderful engagement team, and their job is to work with other agencies, other governments, other people around the world. Specifically with NASA, Australia was a signatory or signed the Artemis Accord, which NASA, Canada, I think Japan, Italy, Luxembourg, and a few other countries signed as well, which is it deals with how we work in an international, overseas, out of planet, interplanetary sort of how we deal with things beyond our own planet, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And there's people in our team as well who talk with a lot of other major corporations in the world. So SpaceX would be up there as well. And we're certainly turning attention to what Australia can achieve at the moment. On an educational front as well, we're borrowing a lot of NASA's resources. They publish a lot of stuff online, which is wonderful. And we're looking to collaborate them to spread the word about space.
Yeah. This is actually a question that came in for Jazz, are you friends with Brennan Dew from Australian Space Agency? Have you guys met before?
Look, I'm open to it. Let's talk, Jazz. I'm in Adelaide. Look, we're now connected on LinkedIn, so who knows what will happen.
That's right. I'll say we are professional friends. I don't think I've had the opportunity to meet him in person yet. As soon as this lockdown opens up and I'm in Adelaide, we're meeting up. We're having coffee. We're catching up, talking all about what we were doing across the board.
And please, for the others, join us as well. Connie and Emma, you're welcome
Yeah,
to
for sure.
join our friendship.
Brennan,
Sounds, I do
was
love
gonna say-
Adelaide. Love it. It's a beautiful place. So any excuse to come for a visit.
I agree. And Brennan, I want to know too, are you doing anything at the Australian Space Agency about other industries taking those to space, like music and the arts? Have you got any plans? Are you exploring or experimenting with how you're going to take Australian artists into space and onto other planets?
What comes into mind here is the Moon Project, I think it's called, which is another much larger thing that Elon Musk is leading, where he wants to take artists initially around the moon, but then in the future to the moon as a source of inspiration. But for us here in Adelaide and throughout Australia, a large role that we're trying to do is just based around awareness that joining the space industry isn't simply just being an astronaut, even though that's the great one. I saw something recently that there is a space poet. So space is certainly integrating with the arts, and music would be another way. At my previous workplace, Sydney Observatory, there was an artist in resident who used this sort of astronomical surroundings to inspire them to create music. So I think there's a really good inspiration aspect there of using space.
That's really cool. Can I ask a question of you, Brendan, then? So I'm seeing a lot in the news that Elon Musk is planning to put satellites in space, and quite a number of them for satellite broadband. Wondering who the customer is for that needs satellite broadband. But you know, there's many instances you could see where it goes. How would that impact you guys?
That's a good question. Probably one that someone in my team could answer better than me. But I guess overall, the plan, I believe, is to provide a low latency internet to everyone in the world. At the moment, this is done through often geostationary satellites like SkyMaster, which is how you would get Wi-Fi if you're ever flying on a plane. So it's a really good way to get high-speed internet to a lot of people. And indeed, SpaceX has launched thousands of these small satellites over the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see once they try to start turning it on, how it affects us all.
Yeah, Elon, I will say Starlink's mandate is very unique and interesting. The fact that even today, or since Starlink started launching their constellation of satellites, because it is constellations of satellites, which is in the hundreds and thousands, that there is enough demand by rural or geographically displaced areas where they don't have fiber connectivity that they want, and they need internet access. You know, everybody on the planet doesn't have internet access, or much less high bandwidth internet access. You can even think about just island nations around Australia who don't have internet access, and today they use satellites to connect. You know, there are people living there as well who just want to watch Netflix as much as we do, and even huge parts of Australia which doesn't have dedicated like fiber. Well, we are in the advent of rolling out NBN across the nation, but it's still something in progress. So Starlink plays a very important role in that. I know some of my colleagues who live out in the middle of nowhere in Australia are also experimenting with the service, are beta testing Starlink, and it's a great service. So over the coming years, as much as it causes a nuance that he is polluting space orbits, but at the same time, they are providing a service which doesn't exist today. So, and they're going to disrupt a lot of industries, which I'm kind of looking forward to, because they'll shake up what the industry currently is in its current form. It's a good question. It's going to cause a lot of problems, but it's going to also create a lot of opportunity for new business cases, for new businesses to emerge out of that.
And really, Internet of Things, everything can be connected all the time. So that'll create a whole new world of opportunity.
Yeah, I think he's going to go head to head with 5G and 6G, and that's going to be a challenge because that is, let's say, light speed in terms of you're looking at, low latency and high speed mobile broadband, which it doesn't require infrastructure, the same level of infrastructure as what's there now. And yeah, so I think it's the whole market is opening up, and it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I was more concerned about the space junk, if you like, and what happens with that.
Yeah,
Well, that in
it's
itself
certainly.
doesn't. Oh, you go.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was going to say it's a problem which doesn't have a novel solution at the moment, and it's a problem which has been left to everybody because nobody wants to solve it. Either it's too expensive, and it's not my problem at the moment. So I know a lot of governments, nations across the globe, are trying to address it as and when new launches occur. They are dictating that every satellite owner has a plan to deorbit the satellite or bringing down safely, put into the correct orbit where it's going to stay for a number of years. So, however, that has not been the case in the past. So at the moment, a lot of industry is complaining that what Starlink is doing is basically doing a land grab, that they're just putting as many orbits in the sky which they can, and nobody can say no because there's no centrally governing body. Which so maybe learning out of this is that we need a centrally governing body which controls all the orbit around the planet, because it is limited, even though we can put a lot of objects out there. Another problem, which you rightly indicated, is space junk. There's so much junk out there, which we don't even know about. The one which we can see, like larger satellites, which have stopped working or failed, we know of. But things which are smaller than 10 centimeters prove to be the bigger challenge. I mean, most recently, there was an incident where, again, space debris went through the robotic arm of the ISS, and only they discovered it visually, that the astronauts on board said there's a hole in the arm. The arm thankfully still works. There's no drama, but that it just it damaged the ISS, and it could have been much worse. Could have been gone through the body of the ISS. Could have damaged critical equipment. So it's a problem. I'll say a lot of my customers are trying to now solve that challenge by having awareness of what is where. In the industry, it's referred to as being as having space domain awareness. Just like we do, air traffic management. So we always know where all the airplanes are. We want to be able to do space traffic management. And the first step of that is knowing where everything is. So that'll very, very soon become a commercially available service. And these services will, tell you where all the space debris is, as small as 10 centimeters or even less than that. So if somebody dropped a screw by accident in space, we'll know where it is and where it's going.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Connie. Can you explain what type of things black hat hackers do? You're on mute, by the way.
Thank you. Black hat is generally referred to as, illegal hacking activities. So those are usually intentional or well, there's no other way to be than intentional when you're black hat. You are seeking to obtain fraudulently information, data, funds, other information assets that you shouldn't have access to for other companies. Some do it for fun, most do it for money. And it's a challenge for every organization. Generally, there is a lot of network activity attacks that come from general scanning, let's say not necessarily black hats, maybe gray hats, just scanning environments to look at what's open. But then there are a lot of targeted attacks which come from black hats. I mean, there's even, darknet services where people can hire black hat hackers to do things for them nefariously. So if I can advise anyone, stay away from black hat, go to the white hat and do good. Hacking for good is always the way to go. I'm going to open this to the other three because I'm sure that all of you have experience with hacking in some form, whether it's in the news or in your own organizations. And maybe you want to talk about the impacts of black hat hackers for you.
Go for it, Jasminder.
I don't want to. I feel like any story I tell is going to be a scary story. Maybe the silver lining here is that, like Connie said, we have to actively look for anything which is not normal, and we always advise our customers that if they ever feel something is not normal, make sure to set in place proactive measures. So, you're constantly looking at your own logs to make sure, hey, is this normal or not? And there's now automated strategies or services you can adopt, which can tell you every day, it'll scan your services publicly every second to tell you if it's being compromised or not. You make sure that you regularly, every few months, do an audit on all of your data, all your logs, all your access to make sure you're adhering to the best practices. And just last week, there was a story one of my colleagues was telling me about one of the customers in another country whose account, one of their accounts was essentially breached or hacked. And they moved quite rapidly and suspended the account essentially. So they worked with AWS security to suspend the account, make sure nothing was operational. And then within a few hours, they were able to recover the account back and have full control. And then, subsequently, they're going through an activity to make sure nothing has been tampered, everything, all the data integrity is maintained before they go, put anything out to public again. So it's an activity we should take seriously and put in place proactive measures. And there's a lot of help available online, and which customers can use. So don't be afraid. Make yourself aware, read, be informed, ask a lot of questions, and build good solutions.
I think this brings into that the topic of diversity as being a strength in this battle against, because it really is just humans versus humans, and the more of a diverse team you have that can think differently to anyone else, and that combination of them really helps as well. We need people like you listening now that are thinking, whatever you've got to bring it and build your career in IT, because that's just what it basically needs at the heart of it. You can learn all of the code, you can learn all of the technical side, but it's that unique combination that you bring to that's super strong in helping to strengthen things. From a GHD perspective, we're building out our cybersecurity strengths because of the critical infrastructure that we work with. It can have not just that financial detriment, but it can have massive environmental implications, or for communities. If there's cases where people have tried to hack water supplies and hack how many, the chemicals and the strength of the chemicals that go into keep the water sanitized, but with upping the dose so that it becomes lethal. Things like that can happen that you've got to keep. That's probably a really dark example, but it's real. This is what's really people are trying to do. Brennan, I'm going to throw to you so that you might end on something more positive.
I think the answers you give it are both sort of similar to what I would have said. Just the cybersecurity front is a very important one, and just as you mentioned, to protect infrastructure, to be on the front foot for these types of things. So it's a big component of what I would think most industries deal with these days in the world where we're becoming internet connected, thanks to Starlink and these things we were talking about just a second ago. So it all ties in together.
Back to you, Gigi.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to Jazz. What type of games run on Amazon Web Services?
I feel like people are going to start thinking that the students are going to thinking Amazon Web Services only runs games. But I will answer the question. Maybe I won't name everything. I will probably say the audience might know about PUBG, or Players Unknown Battlegrounds. That runs solely on Amazon Web Services. It's a very large multiplayer online battle royale game. So you can imagine, multiple millions of people playing it every day, and it was built and it runs on AWS natively. The other big names like studios like Ubisoft, or they create and they also release their games online. Maybe some of their students play games like Clash of Clans made by Supercell, that also runs on AWS. So there's a lot of gaming organizations or studios who run their games on AWS. Maybe the takeaway here is that it's not only easy for you as a developer to build and put your product or your game out there to the public, but you can build really, really scalable solutions. So, you can be building here in Australia, but you can be marketing or having players join in from all over the world to experience your game.
Yeah, cool. With the other three, Connie, Brennan, and Emma, just wondering, I'm a bit curious again, have you guys played any games?
I'd have to say absolutely, and quite a lot. But just I guess to jump on how gaming comes into my industry, it does in the sense of things like computer-generated images. So people have seen the movie Interstellar. There was a wonderful recreation of the black hole called Gargantuan, based off a computer model, and this turned out to be very close to the first photo ever taken of a black hole. So computers have a really good way to explore the edges of physics, the edges of the things we don't know, and to create these worlds that we can't see, or all these realities that we can't see or directly experiment. So it's a really exciting field to sort of be able to create these things out of nothing, and use them in a modeling sort of environment.
My early career was in making web games, so educational games, but I couldn't claim to be a very hardcore gamer at all. I really enjoyed making them. I love playing them, but in terms of computer games, about as much as I get is Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch. That's about my favorite game. We play it as a family, and I know it's old school, but it's just, I love that everyone wins, even if you're coming last. It's important for me.
I love that. And yeah, I'm so old that I started on Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. So, I've gamed when games were like in the worst possible form, and compared to nowadays, if I gave my kids Donkey Kong and said, spend 10 hours on this, they'd last about 1 minute and say, oh, that's boring. But yeah, that's what we did all the time, Donkey Kong. I haven't been a true hardcore gamer for many years. But I do get dragged into, some games like Fortnite and things with my kids when they need someone to laugh at. Yeah, so whilst I enjoy them, not a lot of time to spend playing games. Gigi must have another question
Yeah,
for us.
sorry, I realized I was muted. We're gonna wrap it up with one final question for today. Let's go to Brennan. Where did you study astrophysics? And I'm assuming this also goes to Jazz. And maybe Connie and Emma, have you guys studied, anything related to astronomy as well?
So I studied at Macquarie University, and that was a Bachelor of Science majoring in astronomy and astrophysics. But I think there's quite a few universities who have a very strong astronomy and astrophysics capability. For me, going to Macquarie was also so I could tackle the other part of my passion, which is chasing history. In addition to the fact that Macquarie had their own observatory, you had to do practicals and using the telescopes and classifying galaxies on these old sort of photographic plates. So for me, it was Macquarie, but there's a lot of options around for astronomy and astrophysics.
I did not study astrophysics. I didn't even study physics. So I'm an engineer by trade. I studied electronics and electrical engineering at UTS. And my career took a really steep turn, considering I went from building and putting together infrastructure, computers, servers, data centers, to working for a consulting company, which allowed me to work on multiple industries across multiple solutions. really try and look at the bigger picture, really think about what we're building from a customer perspective, and then go away and build it. So putting together banking solutions, which customers use every day, like ourselves, building mobile applications, which again get used by millions of people every day. How do you build things like that with scale and survive every day as well? The security, the privacy, the governance of them. And that led me to working at AWS, where we were just starting to dive into the space industry. And as a result, so I had to rapidly learn, and I'm continually learning every day with the industry. And I think that's probably been the best way to learn as well, because the industry tells you this is what we need to do, this is how we operate today, and then you have to reimagine with them on how they might do things in a different way, how they might leverage cloud computing technologies to better service their customers, have better solutions which are cheaper, faster, more secure. So it's been a constant journey. It's constantly learning every day, which is what makes it so exciting and interesting.
My degree is in jazz music, so not IT related at all. But it's a long story. But from there I got to do it as an elective. Got to learn about coding as an elective. I then moved to software development I was at Australian National University for my degree. And then not long after, I started a diploma of software development as part of a cadetship that the Canberra government were giving. And then later on, halfway through my career, or 10 years later, I did project management at a TAFE. I did a diploma in that just because I was managing more and more complex projects. So yeah, not a direct path either, Jasmine. What about you, Connie?
Yeah, I've certainly never studied astrophysics. It sounds fascinating, but I'm more into quantum physics, which I guess makes sense when you're in cyber and security, and that's what's coming. Not it's been talk for years about quantum being here in the next so many years and so many years and so many years, and I've been parts of when I was in the university, part of a research group that's focused on quantum computing. So it's a fascinating area, and I really enjoy that side of it. I have no desire to be an astrophysicist. That's next level. You can keep that one, Brendan. Yeah, my journey, I think I've presented that in my presentation, but I'm a pure IT and then information systems security person, and that led into pure cyber. And I was having a chat with one of our Ericsson graduates yesterday, and she took me through what's your journey and how did you get to where you are. And it's so funny to take reflection on how that happens. And I'm going to say initially pure luck. The first real IT job I had was in government secret networks. And so to me, that's so rare that you can get straight in at that level. And I really got to experience every part of security, and including hand splicing fiber myself. We didn't even have machines to splice fiber back then. We had to do it with our hands, without protective goggles either. Apparently that was optional, yeah, I'm old, way back then. So I got to experience so many cool things just by luck of the first job I chose. And interestingly, I had been offered two jobs at the same time. And one was in an intelligence role, like purely intelligence, and the other was in the role I took. And I rang HR and I said, what do I do? I've been offered both. And she said to me, think about this. If you take that one on the left, that's all you're going to do for the rest of your life. If you take that one on the right, that'll open up to other things. And I was like, I'm young. Any job for the rest of my life is not optional. That would scare the pants off anyone to tell them that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So that made my decision for me, and lucky for her that she gave me that advice. So I always just feel it was luck, but I think for all of you looking for potential careers, know that it doesn't matter where you start now. You will probably have a number of changes, and nothing is fatal and nothing is futile. So if you start a degree and you do something and you don't love it, switch, do the next thing, find your passion. That's all I can say for anyone. And I think for all of us, what we do now, we're passionate about it. And I think that's the win-win. Don't ever feel you're stuck doing something, or because you chose one program, you can't take another. you know, you can always switch. You're not stuck. Back to you, Geraldine.
Yep. I think we're going to wrap it up here today. Thank you guys all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for
for
having
having
us,
us.
Thank
Gigi.
you.